This is Will Nunziata, New York City-based director and creator of theater, television, and film. And today I am thrilled to be speaking with the acclaimed visual artist, YIKUI Gu. But he said I can just call him Koi. We're friends now. Before we get to our interview, here is a sneak peek at Koi in an interview talking about his incredible art.
I think that something I was so drawn to with your work was that layering. I think each piece is so vibrant and there's so much compositional texture there, and especially with the pieces you're talking about being this kind of classically trained artist and seeing the different levels of materials and mediums and methods that you're using in each piece, it just makes them so rich. Something that I was especially struck by, and I want you to talk more about, is your use with technology and this printing of the technological surfaces and what you do with those.
Sure. So as a painter, you're often grappling with, of course, the history of painting, its sort of traditional placement at the top of the hierarchy, so to speak, in terms of all the various artistic mediums. And you know, of course, when you go through grad school and stuff, you're gonna like read essays that tell you painting is dead and whatever. Everything's been declared dead a million times, right? So for me, the incorporation of technology, you know, there's a sort of conceptual and a visual tension that interests me.
Well, hello, Koi, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you, Will?
Koi, doing so much better now that we're finally speaking with one another. You are in Philly, me in New York. I was just telling you off camera, this is what I love so much about this new social media app. It has afforded me the opportunity to speak with artists, not only all over this great country, but all over the world. And Koi, I just want to jump right in. Your art is, I've spoken with, I'd say about 200 visual artists who are coming on board this early stages of FENIX360. I've never met anyone who has your POV and your skill set. It is so incredibly unique and moving and authentic and unapologetic. I just want to dive right in first and foremost. Want to know, Koi, where were you born? When did you realize you had an affinity for the visual art? And then on top of that, I just kind of want to dive right in and talk about your classic Yellow series. So I know I just threw out a lot of questions off
That's okay. Top. That's okay. Well, thank you for all the kind words. That's much appreciated. So I was actually born in China, just outside Shanghai, and I immigrated to the States at 7 years old. I actually grew up upstate in the Hudson Valley. I went to art school here in Philly, found a teaching job at a college in this area, and met my wife here, everything. So I've stayed here ever since. I would say that from an early age, 4 or 5 years old, I just had a proficiency for drawing. My parents noticed that, and that was just what I could engage in doing for hours. If my parents just left me with stack of paper and some ballpoint pens, I could just be quiet and occupied for like 3-4 hours, unlike other children. So I think they and I knew from an early age that was where my interest lied. It probably doesn't hurt that my dad was an artist as well. He was a professor at a university in China, and actually our family came over because he was on sort of a foreign faculty exchange program with a university here, kind of like how they do foreign exchange students.
Oh my gosh.
Universities also do faculty exchanges. So he came here first for a year, and then we followed after.
We're in the Hudson Valley, by the way.
Albany, New York. So
I love it.
About 2.5 hours north of you, Will.
Yeah, my husband grew up right outside of Poughkeepsie. So is that a little south of Albany?
It is. It's about midway between the city and Albany. Albany's probably, Poughkeepsie's probably about an hour and change, an hour 15 south of us, So
got it.
That's cool. And you know what? You said Poughkeepsie almost right. So cheers to that.
Boy, like I told you off camera, I'm just faking it till I make it, my friend.
Does he give you grief about that or no?
He gives me grief about a lot, but I can't make this a therapy session, Koi. We've only been married 3 years, Koi.
Okay, all right, and I will have to charge you if it's a therapy session.
There it is. See, that's the businessman that I love. Wait, so here we are. Your dad came over. So this artistic ability is in your bone marrow. And
Yes, I mean, his father was a calligrapher in China, so it's been running in my family for a
wait,
few generations now.
and what I want you to do is assignment for you.
Sure.
You can look up a lot of the calligraphers I've spoken with in the East. Absolutely, it's an incredible, incredible art form that I've been able to really learn through my interviews, and obviously prevalent in the East, but the ones that I've definitely spoken with, China, Japan, Singapore, it's an unbelievable art form. And the fact that this was
Yes.
all this skill set was in your bone marrow, it's in your family. And then you ran with it with doing obviously through so many series that people can look online. Your website, the link to it is below this video. But the Classic Yellow series, you speaking of family, it's autobiographical,
Mhm.
and it's basically using you and your wife as the main subjects. Talk to me a little bit about it.
Sure. So my wife and I were both actually immigrants. She's an immigrant from Germany, but she came much later in her 20s after college. Excuse me. So I started Classic Yellow as a way to kind of reject kind of certain market pressures. Like, in other words, as a painter, I didn't want to just be kind of drawn to, all right, let's make pretty sunsets or paintings that'll look good in hotel lobbies and things like that. And to kind of take those market pressures off, what's one of the best ways to do it? Well, if I center the work around my wife and I, who's going to want to buy those paintings, right? So it's kind of like just for us in some ways. And like, ironically enough, it's where I've had the most commercial success is with this body of work. Um, I wanted to sort of echo our interracial relationship, the dynamics of our relationship with the kinds of materials I use. So in the same painting, you can find very classically, traditionally rendered passages coupled with passages that are, taken from the internet. In a number of my paintings, what I like to do is take a stock photo of an electronic device, such as a TV or a phone, and I find a stock photo online. I have no authorship in the stock photo. It's not mine. I print it out at my local CVS, and that image can be printed a million times. It's infinitely reproducible. But then I take that photo, and onto where the screen on, say, a TV or a phone is, I make a one-of-one painting. So that visually there's a tension between the starkly photographic versus the painterly, but conceptually there's also a tension between a one-of-one image that's painted onto an infinitely reproducible surface. So, there's lots of these like art school theory things that I'm concerned with, but at the same time, I'm not beyond, making a sophomore, borrowing some sort of sophomore humor from the internet as
But
well. I
this
think
is
it
what
all
I
can
love
fit.
about you, and I think what probably makes you a great professor as well, is that it's you understanding the bones of what it is to be, dare I say, an expert in your field, but then also once you know the rules, breaking them. The fact
Yes.
that you, with especially with specifically the series you're talking of now, you're able to fuse together so many different disciplines within the visual art landscape, giving it texture and giving it that dimensionality that, again, I've never seen. Is that something that you've always been curious about, having that kind of like that childlike sense of mischief of, ooh, how can I do it like a little different? How can I throw it on its head a little bit?
Yes, I think that spirit of kind of perhaps, I don't know if rebellion is the best word for it, but there's been that spirit sort of because I think it is important to learn the foundational skill sets that you do in in an art school setting, and it's what I do as a professor today. But one of the things I tell my students is, look, once you're done with college here, right, and you're in a grad program or you're a professional in the field, it's equally important to unlearn all this stuff that we're learning and teaching you right now. And unlearning something is really innovation, and it's not the same as never having learned it at all, because that's ignorance. So those are kind of two different things, although sometimes I think they can get conflated with one another. I do think that there's a certain kind of ethos when I approach the work where, sure, I can be addressing heavy, more serious topics and perhaps sometimes more philosophical topics, the relationship between painting and photography and things like that, that only really artists care about. But I also want to address things like, things that are going on in society, my wife and our relationship to American contemporary society. And sometimes the best way to reach a wide audience is to use humor, as well as sort of, again, I refer back to like using imagery from internet culture and things like that. They're kind of readily available, but also very kind of easily digestible. And so giving people like some entry point into perhaps deeper ideas is one of the things I think about in my work.
And also what I think is so great about what you do, COY, is that I think you have a conscious, or probably even also a subconscious understanding that a lot of people, when they hear the word visual art, oh, that's not for me. It's kind of like when people think of opera, oh, it's not for me. But you allow them, you give people the permission to feel related, to relate to it and and then once they're in, it's then you're able to really fully be your true artistic self. And it's not you selling short, it's just you being smart. It's you using what is going to get people to lean in. And then, does that make sense? I know I'm
absolutely
a sentence.
No. I agree with you, Will. I think that art, in a fine arts context, can often turn people off, right? They think it's some unapproachable piece of conceptual art where it's a bunch of debris laying in a white box somewhere, right? That's like our
being sold for $1 billion,
right? Sure,
I could have done that.
A banana duct taped to a wall, for example, right? Things like that. So I think it's important that art, in my eyes at least, does not exist in an ivory tower somewhere, that it should be sort of democratically accessible to everyone. And sure, not everyone will want to gain entry, but if you give them this sort of entry point, yes, then it can lead to them this greater self-discovery, greater, appreciation for things they perhaps didn't even realize they would before. So,
well, COY, listen, I could speak with you all day. I want to let everyone know, for more on the incredible COY and all of his art, all of the series that he has put out, all of the amazing pieces of art that people can purchase. How can people go about purchasing it?
Well, they can contact me directly through my website. Also, I do have some exhibits coming up. And so for example, I'm currently this is not unfortunately in the Northeast, but I'm currently in an exhibit at Washington University in St. Louis. And this is actually in an exhibit alongside nationally recognized artists such as Kehinde Wiley, who did the Obama presidential portrait, amongst others. So
hello.
This was, it just all sort of happened last summer when my exhibit was reviewed by John Yau in Hyperallergic, and then after that, it picked up a lot of attention, and I've been having these opportunities. So
you're very famous. You're going to be even more famous on this app. You're going to be selling your art, NFT, selling all over the world. Well, listen, I could speak with you forever. I want everyone to go to your website, go to the links below. You are an incredible artist. I can already tell. I've learned so much. These students, they don't know who they have in the classroom. Okay, students watching
You're right about that.
Students, listen to this guy. COY, I'm so excited you're coming on board this amazing new app, but also I'm so excited that we are now connected.
Yes, thank you so much, Will.
Thank you.